So we're still in the middle of your question about how Mark got to Africa.
Yeah, but
right.
Get back to the shaman. The
facilitator. I don't know how he'd like to refer to himself these days, but
it's a heavy. The shaman is a heavy term. Shaman is someone who bridges the spiritual world with the physical world. So it's everything we're talking about. And
so here I am. I'm in the pool hall, and my good friend Mark had saved up $15,000 to go to rehab. And with the habits you were sponsoring at that time,
8,000.
I was impressed.
Okay.
I could see that you were serious and you wanted change, right? You had taken time to prepare, right? And so I go home, I send you the website, and a week goes by. I haven't heard from Mark, and I'm thinking, geez, did he go to rehab? Where is he? And I get a call from Mark. He says, Kyle, you want to go for lunch? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm in Vancouver. He says, so am I. I said, what are you doing in Vancouver? He says, Kyle, I've been researching Iboga for a week on the internet. Wow. I found an Iboga, a shaman from Africa. He's practicing in Costa Rica. I bought a plane ticket. I'm leaving in 3 hours, and I want to have lunch with you. And I'm like, wow, this is like, holy shit, like, go for it, buddy. So we went and had lunch, and the best part, he goes, Kyle, it's only $5,000.
It's six.
It's six. It's so, and it was only 1 week instead of 3 weeks. So it was more efficient and less expensive, and away you went, right? And I was I had a lot of anticipation to see when you got back. So what happened when you went down to meet Magenda in tell us a bit about Magenda.
Well, first preparing, as soon as you sort of make a decision like this, everything when I got home resonated for me. And especially in concurrence with what Kyle's talking about, the natural aspect and doing it with a shaman, doing it with someone who's traditionally used this for a long time. There was just no other way for me. So I was very excited when I found it, got my plane ticket, actually left one early morning. I remember, I think I had to hitchhike part of the way or something, I forget. But
this is in Costa Rica now?
No, on the way. That day, to get down to the city before I saw you.
Oh, you didn't tell me that part.
There's a lot going into it once you start making this decision to do this.
Right.
Landed in Costa Rica with $6,000 in my pocket. I remember thinking, holy shit, that could be a lot of. I had my last shot in Texas. This was Houston. I had my last shot, and I mixed
shot of whiskey or
tequila and whiskey. I mixed it. I never had that before. So
how was that?
Shot of each. It was good.
Okay.
And then went. And
it was symbolic for you, like my last shot.
Just so symbolic. Your brain's going I landed. I was like, wow, that's a lot of hookers and blow and
projectile vomiting.
But
the options kept popping.
But just still kind of but I was strong. There's no way I'm doing this. Yeah. Especially telling my family that I was going to Costa Rica to work with a shaman and do Iboga was just the last straw for them. Okay. So, but I went.
Right away, they thought that was a failure. Right when you were actually taking the steps to complete your own healing.
I'd really severed the trust for many years, so I know it's very expected that the reactions are like that, especially when I'm throwing another loopy-doopy idea like that out. But landing and going, I met the shaman, and he was treating a girl that night. So I went back into the main house, and I remember her screaming at the top of her lungs, and I was just what the hell have I got myself into? I was really, because I didn't really know too much about it. And
you heard about it a week before.
Yeah.
A week before. Now you're in the mountains of Costa Rica, and you're how far from a town?
I met Magenda, and he's he's taller than I am, very big black shaman,
from Gabon, Africa,
Gabon, very, he's a serious presence. It's like if you wandered into a zoo and all of a sudden you ended up in a tiger's place, and all of a sudden you're walking around, there's the tiger. It's okay.
And he was trained in this Buati tradition.
See, this is a shaman. A shaman spends half their life training for this. So for me, I would never go to Africa and say to those guys, I'm a shaman. I would have
who is Magenda's father?
His father was was his grandfather was the powerful shaman.
So he's the grandson of a shaman.
He's a 10th generation in bloodline shaman. So they already knew he was coming before he was born.
So his family has been for 10 generations shamans in Africa. This is the guy you went to meet.
Yeah, they're all real deals.
You're a snowboarder from Whistler, and you just flew down to Costa Rica to meet a 10th generation African shaman. I was having a baby in
2.5 months, man. Something had to change, and nothing to that point in my life had ever resonated with me that much.
Excellent.
Right? Wow. So I went, and then she came back screaming. She didn't have a real good experience. Whatever. I went through the next day. It's basically like you're preparing for battle. If you're a warrior, like it's like you're going in. You're just like you're going forward. You're not backing out. And I went, and I didn't know what the hell was gonna happen. And it's like a lot of it. He started talking to me, and I remember he was like talking to me and going, "Oh man, you're gonna be good. You're no problem. You're easy. Well, this will be fine." And I'm like, okay. And he sat and do what I now know is a huge part of this, which is the talking and the fire circles and the therapy that goes in with it. And he told me one thing like about recognizing truth from false. It's important, man. He's like, you know what I mean? Like he goes, okay, watch. He goes like, you got your friend over there back home, and you ask him a really good question. And he gives you an answer, and then you can go to your sister and say the same one, and she'll answer. Who are you gonna believe? And I'm like, well, my sister. He goes, exactly, because that's the truth. You see how it resonated with you? You got to learn how to do that with everything. Just little things like this. So I'm like, holy, okay, that's cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like a bunch of that, like all over the place. My brain, and then start taking medicine.
And how did you eat the medicine when the first time?
Root bark, good old cow.
So was it like a powdered root bark in a capsule, or
powdered root bark in a spoon? You always do it like the real way.
Okay, raw, right on your tongue.
Yeah. So very bitter.
What was your first taste of that medicine? What did it taste like?
I loved it because I was ready for anything at that point. It's just like, just do it. And your first mouth of root bark is always okay. And everybody says, that's not bad. But, you work on it. Even now we go to Africa, and the most hardcore women or anything, they're like even on mouthfuls. It's like, and the shamans say, it's good because you got to fucking earn it.
Yeah.
You got to fight for it.
Well, you just did that taste there, that bitterness is there for you to earn that. You got to go through a little bit to pay a little bit.
It's an honor to be able to eat it, actually.
The burdock root and some of the other things all have the bitters. And in England, they have bitters that they added to the alcohol because the bitters were drawing out from our organs.
Yes.
Our tongue is connected to all the organs. So that bitterness is pulling any toxins that you have in your organs itself.
Yeah.
I spent a little bit of time here just in Lima, Peru, and Vanuatu with the cava and that sort of thing. And I met a guy down there, and he's one of his students, Sunshine Brown, she calls herself. And this guy's name is Andrew McLean. He worked in China doing crazy stuff with cosmetics that I really want to get into right now because I don't want to get hunted down. But so he left China. He spent about 30 years in South America doing all of this stuff. His name is Andrew McLean, and he wants to get up to Canada. I mean, this is a guy he took me around shopping in Lima and to all these places, and we bought all these fruits and vegetables, and he put them into his bath water. And this would cleanse his entire body. This guy is right up there with you guys are talking about. He is a psychiatrist and a GP, and he frickin' hates the government. And he took me to... And he hates the government because they tried to squash him too for 30 years. And he took me to a place because I was looking for opiates. I was looking for my hydromorphone with Mark Tyndall's doing in Vancouver. He's giving out 8 milligram shots. So I was looking for my just 2 or 3 milligrams to get me so I can walk again. I'm all injured from the army. And so he took me to this. We went to every pharmacy. No opiates. You could not get opiates in Lima, in none of those places. Nobody asked me if I wanted cocaine, nothing. It's the coke capital of the world. And nobody could have opiates. You could get Tylenol, this and that. And this one guy's teaching this, and he's got his own school, Andrew McLean. And so I didn't know what the hell to do. So he took me to the last pharmacy, and it was a giant pharmacy in Lima made by the cartel. And he says, we're not even going to go in there, but we have to. Let's try. Nothing. You have to be dying of cancer to get an opiate in South America.
Wow.
So this stuff is so much needed right now. You guys are talking about, and they're trying to call that voice down there. And he'll come up if we pull our money, and Andrew McLean will speak to us, or we can talk. We can go on the McPherson stage because all of these stories are helping people. Thank you very much. I don't want to keep going with your shaman story.
No, I'll just
Thank
go,
you.
Quickly. So then I mean, what really happened? And then I took a pill form of the TA, and I laid down, and I was remember thinking in my because he had a fire going outside, and then the music starts, which is a whole nother situation. It's music that's been given to them through the medicine and through spirit, and it's the threads, vibrational threads that connect the spiritual with the physical. So anyways, I started listening to music, but honestly, the very first time I felt something, it was this immense gratefulness and love that there was something that was going to help.
Yes.
And I knew that I would basically spend the rest of my life working with it right then.
Cool.
So
The first night you felt that?
first 15 minutes of laying down. So and it makes sense to me now because I'm so involved with it. So
Wow.
But anyways, laying there, I remember the vision started, and I had this vision of me like, you know, the predator when it's like mirrored image, you can hardly see him in the jungle. Yeah. The predator.
Yep.
I could see myself like that, and then I went like this and just froze, and then fell and hit the ground and like shattered into like a billion pieces, and just like began a series of that sort of
Became
thing.
one
Then
with
I-
everything.
then
So
I
was that
threw
was that
up.
your former self that
I don't
dissipated,
just,
or
that's what I'm just displaying, that the visions that come through they're all representative of the spiritual words that you need to hear, that you are. Like you are the universe. So you're hearing yourself, or you know, you're connecting with one. So then the shaman, like, I had questions I'd given him, and I had no idea what would happen. But when the medicine was really kicking in, he laid me down and he tapped my third eye. And he said, "Can you see my fingers?" And I was like, "Holy shit, yeah, I can." But my eyes were closed. And so I was like, "Okay." And then I remember like him asking the questions that I knew. He said, "Okay, go into a house and find Laura." Right? And I saw Laura. And then he says, "Okay," and I asked her like, you know, questions. And I was talking to the baby mom, like the mother, you know, and asked him for forgiveness and stuff like this. And then I met myself and my soul, and we started asking the questions. And one of my questions was like, "Are you going to be a healer?" And I said, "Yes." It just sounds so. I was just answering them, and then he goes, "Stay still. You're all fidgety. Like, stay still. Like, stop." And then he asked me another question, and then he's like, "What? You know, what are you so moving around about?" I said, "Well, I'm answering these questions." And he goes, "Well, who is answering these questions?" I'm like, "Well, I'm answering these questions." And then my mind literally just blew out of because that's the first time I realized, like, who am I? And who was really, oh my God. And then I turned around like this, because it felt like there was a jackhammer in the back of my pocket, and I seen this giant blue like diamond, which I was guessing was my soul, and then I could see me all hunched over and not living up to my full potential, and just realized like I had to make a change.
Very cool. Well done. And that was all right away in minutes.
No, this is, you know, it's hard to like really condensify like time into
the
this whole
space
situation.
time kind of?
And I'm also really getting to the point a lot about to give a good understanding of the power of not just the medicine but yourself.
Yep.
And the importance of using this in a very traditional context, which is able to house this level of healing.
Yeah.
Speaking of tradition, Mark, Mugenda ended up inviting you to Africa. And you've been down there two times or three times?
Just be quick. This is the very beginning. That's the very first time.
This in Costa Rica, the first
came home,
time.
somebody paid me an ounce in blow, actually. They owed me money. And I was able to sit on that without doing it for a month. For the whole time, I never did it. I got rid of it. So I'm just saying that's how strong that event was, just for physical change and a mental, spiritual reconnection. Yeah. And then
so you had your former enemy in your house.
It's all over.
For
it's
a
always
month.
around. Always around.
But
it's everywhere.
Of course.
It's only one thought away, reality.
You can't get away from it.
Well, you can. You do, because you connect with yourself and you realize, like, to care to not care. You care about yourself so much, you don't care about that. You make your priorities you first. So, and that's where you get your strength and armor. Instead of abusing yourself, you protect yourself. You turn the bully into a bodyguard.
Wow.
Right? Perception. Right. And so I was able to say, you know, I want to work the rest of my life. I returned to Costa Rica. I returned to like 2 more times, and I started training. Then once I was training, I got taken off training, put back in healing. Then I've been to Costa Rica 12 times now. And then after about 2 years in, we had the baby, and that was beautiful. Actually, on the journey, he got me to go in and look at the baby, and he was healthy, and he looks just like that now. And anyways, then I went to Africa and did a full initiation with the Bwiti.
And on the plane to Africa?
This is my second.
Okay.
So this is my first trip. I went to Africa and did a full initiations.
And where'd you go in Africa? Tell us about that.
To Gabon. It's just jungle.
So you hit the airport, and then what happened?
You go to the jungle.
Tell us about that.
Well, you go to the jungle, and
how do you get to the jungle, Mark?
In a little, like, that particular time is a little tiny red van. Like, they just drive around in cheap vehicles all over the place. This is a
like a Datsun minivan or something.
It's intense as anything. It's a third world, like, super hardcore black country.
And you got $6,000 in your pocket.
No, not this. That's Costa Rica.
I was like, oh.
No, we've gone to Gabon now. Now I'm going to Africa. My first trip to Africa, I did initiations, which is where they initiate you using Iboga into the Bwiti tradition, which is basically introducing you to the spiritual world, so that you can actually do Iboga on your own without losing yourself.
Body, mind, and then spirit. The three those are the three
the markings on my wrist you can't see here.
Yep.
And what you just said is what they say.
So in your course of actions and your words, we want to come from spirit to our mind, and then the mind has the experience.
Your mind is the most powerful tool that you have. It works 24/7, continuous thoughts. It's up to you to choose which ones you want, because he explained it.
Yeah.
Like,
In the
knowing
now.
who you are is knowing you're a spiritual being who has the ability to manifest life. Like, God created us in his image. So that means that we're like little gods. That means like that we're creators. We're the same, all the whole same thing.
So what's the goal? Is it to create a calm ecosystem within?
What he said, happiness. He
Happiness.
said it as fun instead.
What vibration would be that? If you're explaining that,
For anyone who wants to know about
Mike, pass the mic.
anybody that wants to know about how, vibrations and whatnot, that's not completely tuned in to how all that is, or everything. It does come down to vibratory energy. There's a great book called Power versus Force, written by Dr. David Hawkins. Wayne Dyer actually called it one of the most important books that was ever written, and it actually shows how there's a map of consciousness and how energy is actually calibrated at certain levels of megahertz, like you were talking about earlier. But it's just what he actually kind of breaks down what you find out during doing plant medicine in a book. But some of us really need to feel it, especially the people like that have dealt with addiction. Like I have dealt with addiction, and I needed to get over my addiction. And like it's, I've done lots of cocaine, I've done lots of MD. Like I needed something to remove that because all I was doing was always just masking whatever I am, whoever I thought I was only putting that crap in my body because it was making me feel a certain way to get outside of self. But when I could accept myself as love, then why would I want to hurt that love with, that certain chemicals, like say, I'm not a drinker, I don't need to do cocaine, I don't need to do, whatever. It doesn't matter. Everyone's different, but like we're all the same. We're all one. So anyways, I'm going to throw that.
Hey, Robin, could you bring up Wayne Dyer?
You want me to bring up Wayne?
No, over here. We got a producer who does that. Can you bring up Chocolate to Morphine, Understanding Mind-Altering Drugs? Chocolate to Morphine. There's a book I read in the 70s, and I think it was by Wayne Dyer. And he said our biggest thing going forward, gentlemen, we haven't really touched on it today, is there are children that may listen to this podcast. There are teens that haven't developed their brains yet. All this stuff is happening. How do we address that group? Because that would be a law thing. It would be a legal thing. And how do we address helping? Because of laws and stuff.
Through an organization called Pathways, which is a major, it's a serious mental health company, corporate, non-for-profit, that helps with families to understand the misunderstood mental health. I've been able to speak to schools on a weekly basis. I'm very grateful. Next week I get to speak to my old school twice. So I'll have 8s and 9s, and then after that I'll be speaking to 11s and 12s on the topic of mental health, obviously, because the kids need to be educated at such a young age these days in this rapidly changed world of with digital with technology, with everything, because we're overstimulated these days. Who's kidding who? Like the vibratory energy within the planets, the ether is literally ricocheting shots of energy through our skulls nonstop.
5G's coming.
It's coming. It's already here.
Can we stop it?
Well, we're stopping it right now because we're in a different energy field. We're in a different vortex.
Nice.
So we need to educate these kids more on definiteness of purpose. Actually, self-discovery we need to implement this kind of stuff into the educational system. So I literally kind of subconsciously, in my own unique way, when I'm talking to these kids in school, I'm tell them, hey, you can do anything you put your mind to. Even mental illness. If you're suffering from a mental illness doesn't need to define you. You may have been told or mislabeled or whatever, and just being you is enough. Like just being your true self is enough.
You hear that you hear the kids out in society. If you hear them saying something you don't like, you can interrupt them too. I was stuck at the ferry terminal about 3 weeks ago, right? And there's two kids in the banyo, and the one kid's telling the other kid how he's studying poker, right? And he's about 18 years old.
Really?
And I said, "Excuse me, if I were you, I would quit right now." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I've wasted thousands and hours of my life sitting at a poker table." And I said, "You should be out dancing with women, playing sports, hiking in the forest." And the kid's looking at me like I'm crazy.
That's funny.
But I hope, when he got home that night,
he might have thought about constructive
it.
Craziness. It was constructive craziness is what it was. I was walking home from, I went to go get a coconut water a couple days ago. I live really close to the mountains up in the North Shore, and there's these high school kids. This one kid was in grade 8 probably, and he was talking about eating roaches. So I don't know. I was like,
all the cannabinoids. You see the dogs eat the roaches around the shop here. My little Pomeranian.
For the record, we do not need any stinking roaches, okay?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways.
So let's get back to Africa. Mark's about to tell us something.
I'm going to just do a fast version here. So first time I went to Africa, I did what's called initiation, and that's the initiation into the Bwiti tradition using Iboga. So they jam you filled with Iboga. Mega Iboga. Mega. And it's a fuel that can push you above and sort of connect you with your soul, and you can see into the future and see into the past and be here, present. So the second time I went to Africa, I met a beautiful woman on the plane. I ended up marrying her. We ended up going on my third trip. I married her, and we conceived our son there. My second trip is interesting because we did this thing called a rites of passage, and that's where all the boys and go through this 4 or 5 day process where we all go through it. They bring fear to your face. They do tons of things, and they teach you lessons about life like that, these ultimate rules where you need to respect your parents no matter what, even if they're wrong, truth and honor, like about the real stuff. Like, if you want to act like a man, if you want to be a man, act like one. I didn't say you can't play around anymore. I just said you can't fuck up anymore, because they can't have in their society, they got to teach traditional values to their kids so they don't continue to make these same mistakes up in their own villages. Wow. Or if they go to the jungle, you can't have these kids fucking up in the jungle.
I seen that in Vanuatu, man, the circumcision ceremonies for little boys.
In those situations.
Exactly. And here too.
Hugely important.
We don't see it fast like that, though. It's life and death. But if you let it go unaltered,
it's numbed down with corn syrup, with the techniques used to hold people in positions.
Yeah. So I've done many Iboga ceremonies in Africa. Yep. I've been around really serious shamans where someone will walk in with a major problem where they can't even walk, and they'll perform because their temples there or their doctor's offices. Yeah. There's a lot of different things spiritually. So when we talk about vibratory levels of connecting with ourselves and all that, they're simple to them. It's the soul. So how do these things take it out of the body? Remember you were saying before, maybe these bitters in it. No, it's just because Iboga's going in and kicking them out.
Yeah.
And some of these really bad, like fentanyl and Iboga, the battle can be so intense that the body can lose. So you have to be very careful, and that's why we like using things like ibogaine now to slowly walk somebody off of a heavy addiction. So anyways, that led to me starting my own business in 2014. I've worked with probably over 1,000 people. I went super after intense mental problems, physical addictions, mental health as wealth. And trained myself to really see what this medicine could do. And then that led to where these guys wanted to do a documentary on this girl. And they started out, they heard microdosing could help. And they went and microdosed her on mushrooms and gave her mushrooms. And they filmed it. They were making a documentary. And 5 months into it, they hit a wall because she just, obviously mushrooms was not strong enough to end her really significant opioid and cocaine addiction. And they called me. And I went on film to do it. And so that's led to now, that was a successful treatment. And she's now 2 years clean.
Very cool.
And then she used the mushrooms afterwards in the movie, and it showed I think there was efficacy because she was more receptive now to the mushrooms. It's like Star Wars. Some of my friends don't like when I use this, but in one of the last ones, they're like attacking the transport. Do you remember the one where she turns around and drives right through the big starship? Maybe too much. Anyways, what I'm getting at is they had to sit there and attacking this transport, but the big starship couldn't do anything because it had its force field on. But eventually, that she was running out of gas, and as soon as that force field was down, blammo. So that's with us with the medicines. It's nice to use the ibogaine to get someone to get that force field down, and then we come in with the heavy, because the spirit of Iboga wants to come in, man. He's just going to clear the room. So you want to go, like if you go to your house and there's a big party going on, right? Before maybe you call the cops to clear every. You don't want those people. It's like your head. The shit's all going in your head. You got to get them out, and Iboga's going to come in. So you want to clear the area out a bit, and then when Iboga comes in, and
with food too, like fear meat, so all the meats that are in your body can create vibrations. Was there a dietary?
They love meat. They're like they don't even know vegetarians over there. So when you say that, you're like you got some special protocol.
Yeah, we're talking about Walmart meat. Like we're talking about
this is jungle meat. Jungle meat.
But I mean,
I think yes, I do think so. Yes, I think
by
spiritually,
clearing yourself and preparing for without some of those things that can alter.
No, you're exactly right.
Preparation.
Preparation in any form forward is going to be beneficial, right? And if you've got that down to like that, do you think there's some negative energy or some bad spiritual stuff's coming in with those animals and that for sure?
So I like that analogy you're using, Mark, of the force field. It's like a psychic force field that an addict will put up,
but it's a physical one.
They're living within that. They're behind it.
It's a real physical one though with addicts. There's an actual physical force field. If Gord was here, we could talk about.
So how do you clear it out? What's that stick that you have there?
Well, this is a torch from Africa. This is what they use in all the ceremonies. So this one has a casing on it. So this is it's got different medicines in it, and it has a kume resin, which is from a big tree, that holds high spiritual. Like this guy can just go and clear energy out.
Cool.
Can I light that for you, Mark?
Well, I'll show you how to do it.
Yeah. Okay, you got it. Okay.
10 minutes left in the podcast, gentlemen. This is fantastic. I could go on for days. 10 minutes to countdown.
So you brought this from Africa.
The fire here helps us in ceremonies. I would say almost spiritually lets darkness know where you are. This thing will stay lit, and then but this the smell also that just it's just a big smudge stick.
Is there music playing generally?
The UBC is doing measurements on vibration of the water molecule, and I think these plants have different vibrations that then can be taken in through our system. So that smell, that smudging, is something that a lot of cultures do.
Might be too smoky here, but.
We got the window open there. It's fine.
Okay. I'm going to pass it to Wyatt.